Kotak, thank you very much for speaking with us. So you've outlined a fairly positive macroeconomic situation. You've said that basically if you look at the 3 or 4 things, the macros
Yes.
That we should normally look at, whether it's inflation, interest rates, external sector, fiscal deficit, everything's falling into place. And the runway seems to be fairly now clear. At the same time, you've said this is the time when people should be now going out and taking the risk. And that seems to be the moot point here.
No, I completely agree. I mean, just if you and I sat back and thought about a dream macro for India 10 years ago, it would have been oil at $50, current account around 1% of GDP, fiscal deficit below 4%, consumer price inflation below 6%. All that and more has happened. And this is one of the most perfect situations from an Indian point of view for a long, long time that I have seen. So with such a positive macro, I think the challenge is a lot of the micro is broken, and that's what needs to be fixed. And I genuinely believe that this is the time for us to do the right things to fix Indian micro, but also for the mindsets of some of Indian business and entrepreneurs to change, to really start investing now for the long run. We may not see results in the next 3 or 6 months because the global headwinds may continue, but this is the time to build foundations for a good future.
Right. So let me ask you about the micro first, and then I'll come to the mindset. So give us an illustration of where do you think the micro problems are?
I think the clear issue is there is a significant amount of excessive leverage, particularly in the area of projects and infrastructure by private sector. So that has to be in many ways corrected, to use a stronger word, maybe purged, but we need to get past that. And a lot of the mindset issues are coming out of stock and not out of flow. And the favorable environment which is actually unfolding is getting unfairly discounted.
Okay. If you were to look at what's happening on the external side, I mean, if you look at, let's say, whether it's China, whether it's other emerging markets, you made a comparison with Brazil a little while ago, and you were saying that, if we had talked about, if Brazil was in the picture a couple of years ago, it would have been competing for attention, but it's no longer there. But is that a lesson for us too, in some ways?
I think it's a lesson for everybody that, number one, we should do the right things not only at a crisis. Number two, in good times, we should be careful about getting complacent. And this is a journey of a steady corrective mechanism which we must go down the path. And democracy tends to make governments act slower unless there's a crisis. And that is, I think, the challenge which we must do in terms of learning as a lesson from Brazil.
So tell us about how you are seeing it from a Kotak Bank point of view. I mean, in terms of capturing the opportunity or seizing the opportunity.
I think the monetary policy and the framework which the central bank from a policy point of view have put is amazing. Real interest rates above CPI at around 1.5% is a clear guidance. Therefore, as CPI comes under control, you're seeing lower nominal interest rates, and that is beginning to feed into financial assets. A positive situation on that from a real interest rate point of view is making savers move money to financial assets. And I believe that is the starting point of a long-term financial sector development, which is core to financing India's economy over the next 10 years.
Right. And you're saying that this year could be maybe the starting point, because they've been sort of
several
false alarms.
Having said that, it started last year. If you look at new money into equity mutual funds, we have seen positive flows. Yes, there has been a temporary blip on bank deposits, and people are trying to figure out this cash in the system. But otherwise, I think we will see growth in deposits, we'll see growth in debt mutual funds, we will see growth in equity funds, and you'll see growth in life insurance premiums.
Right. And for Kotak Bank, how is this period looking? I mean, are you seeing?
See, in our case, we, as you know, last year we did a merger. So we've brought 2 banks together. Therefore, this last 12 months has been a period where we've really been working in terms of getting the house together between the 2 banks. So that's a period of transition. But as I look at 16-17, I feel positive about the future.
Right. And last question, if obviously we've had a bank NPA overhang now, and maybe that's going to ease off in sort of slowly. But what are the lessons that perhaps people are not paying attention to? I mean, one is the balance sheet lessons. You can see the numbers and say that we have to get rid of this problem. There must be intangible lessons as well.
I think first of all, in banks, the balance sheet is more important than P&L. This is the first fundamental philosophy which I believe in. And Second, as an extension of that, we need to ensure that if there are balance sheet issues, address them head on rather than kick the can. Because the faster you do it, you build trust of markets, investors, and you move on to the next stage. The more time you take in terms of trying to figure out your accounting versus solving the real issues, the worse it gets over time.
Right. What about the way you assess projects or the way you lend money to businesses or types of businesses? Should that change, or have we got our fundamentals in place there?
I think fundamentally from a banking system point of view, I would like each of us to keep, irrespective of the sector, you got to obviously have sector expertise and all that, have a common sense principle. If you don't understand something, don't do it.
But you feel that's really the cause of many of the problems that we've seen?
At times that's what happens, because people take decisions not necessarily on basis of their understanding, but because their neighbor is doing it.
Right. And absolutely last question. So we've seen an interest rate reduction, and are you hoping that the rest of the year we'll see further reductions, or you think we've...
I think first of all, over the year, I do believe the banking system will respond gradually to lower interest rates and better liquidity. And our view is, in this calendar, one more rate cut sometime in 2016.